Hello, guys. Often in life, things don't go as planned, and I think back when the Hopewell dictionary idea failed, that's when things started to unravel. I tried to salvage the what would you call it the plan by trying out Hebrew dictionaries and then spherical k-means, but those won't be enough to beat poker. I think it could be made to work with just tabular reinforcement learning, which does work well, and some clever engineering. But my main goal in poker was never to solely to make a poker bot, but use it as a pathway towards AGI. It was a long journey, but it's been impossible to find a superior algorithm that could lead me to that place. I've only built up, or rather, I've really built up my programming skills over the course of the decade, and creating the spiral programming language and attaining the skills that I have will never be a regret. I wish I could say the same about the field of machine learning. Here is what is beating me. Take a look at this table. When the model is simple and the dataset is static, that's pretty much just a regular programming task that we won't really think about. You just implement a simple function and move on. When the model is complex, but the dataset is possibly large but still static, think about, for example, natural image recognition. Something like ImageNet with labeled the data vectors with labeled images, or maybe even unsupervised generative task. That could be implemented with a diffusion model like Stable Diffusion or DALI 3. That could also be considered a static dataset, because the dataset obviously is static. It's not like every time you train on a part of the dataset, the world itself changes and the dataset becomes invalid. So for such tasks, you can use neural networks and machine learning to very good effect. But when the dataset is dynamic, like in poker, why is the dataset dynamic there? Because what the opponent does is a part of the dataset, and every time you adapt to the opponent keeps adapting to you. So the environment constantly changes, and is no. And what this is called is in reinforcement learning literature is a non-Markovian environment. So the dataset is dynamic, and most things in the real world are like that. It's kind of like a game theoretic thing, and it can only be really solved using tabular reinforcement learning. As far as I know, deep reinforcement learning doesn't work well for this. I know that I've tried. It wasn't during the Spiral series, but in the past, like a few years ago, I did try various deep reinforcement learning methods on no limit hold'em, and they all failed. They did work on LIDAC, but it didn't. They all died on no limit hold'em. They can all convert to agents that constantly raise and fall to the final re-raise, or constantly just call, or something like that. Or maybe they would fall to every raise. That to me indicated that the model simply didn't have the capacity to learn to read the board. You only get a kind of like something like a reward at the end, and that isn't enough to make the model do what humans do, which is learn to read the board, learn to read the other players, and they develop expressive features based on what's going on in the real world. The model would only see something like a reward at the end, and that isn't enough. And it's actually even worse, because that reward at the end has very high variance, I did try various methods like what was it called? The various natural gradient optimizers like KFAC. And I was actually playing around with that in 2018. In 2020, I had my own. I tried some different methods, like my own methods. I had a really nice method that kind of made intuitive sense to me. It actually did work well on Ludak, then it died on No Limit Hold'em. And when that happened, it was kind of like well, what happened this time around, where I had a method that I believed in, it failed, and then I kind of I scrambled around and tried to grasp something that could possibly work in order to salvage the whole plan, and then I would just throw in the towel and move on to the next thing. So what in 2024 we did try out the evolutionary algorithms. I didn't really believe in those, but at that point I didn't really have any choice because I kind of wanted to go from here to AGI. I know that I wouldn't really figure out AGI, but I thought that if I really put in the effort, I could get closer. And as for getting from tabular reinforcement learning to AGI, I suppose this latest attempt could be considered something like that, because I know that I didn't want to, handcraft my own clustering functions. Instead, I used Poker as a platform to try out various clustering algorithms. And as you can see, they kind of worked pretty badly. What did work on the very second attempt, and it kind of did work on the couple networks, is when instead of doing immutable updates, I did the insertions into the dictionary directly. It would have worked for the couple dictionaries if we had like millions and tens of millions of rows. But that would have made the algorithm incredibly slow, so we dropped that. Then I decided to try a Hebbian dictionary because we were initializing the dictionary as all ones. That did give us some success. We did have a few runs where it got very close to optimal. But for reasons that have been explained in the previous videos, these insertions ended up with duplicates, and that really hurt performance on Lidak. So in the end, to avoid those duplicates, I tried out. We tried out spherical k-means. And if we did insertions for spherical k-means, it would have worked on Lidak. But the problem with that is that I decided that I don't want to have matrices with 10 million rows. Instead, we would have like 4 matrices with like 10, 20 rows or something like that. And this would have made the algorithm much more efficient. But if we have, like such a small number of rows in every cluster, at that point, it's actually reasonable to consider just handcrafting the function. And that's the path we need to go from here. Like, we weren't really doing tabular RL to IGI. We were trying to, there's kind of like a boundary that goes here. It's not necessarily this table that we see. It's not necessarily crossing horizontally like this and this. Instead, it can be like something like a Pareto frontier. Whoops. So, going from here to here didn't work. Going from here to AGI didn't work. So the only the only real option is to maybe go, f- go all in on tabular reinforcement learning. And I do consider counterfactual regret tabular reinforcement learning algorithm, even though it was not from the field of reinforcement learning, but from the field of game theory. But I'm not an academic, so it's pretty much all the same shit for me. What really matters is what you're using to determine the categories. And we are basically using a regular dictionary, so it's a tabular algorithm for me. Uh, yeah. As for kind of figuring out how to get from here to AGI, it's become a waiting game. I don't have any more good ideas. Maybe we need some, new hardware like neuromorphic hardware to stimulate algorithm development. Maybe something will come from neuroscience. Maybe something will come from development of these heavy algorithms. Who knows what the right path is? There are definitely paths towards AGI because we have plenty of examples of AGI in nature. Every human is basically an AGI. It's it's it just cannot humans just cannot enter the self improvement loop. They cannot edit their own minds to improve their intelligence. The closest they can come to that is by programming computers, and that's why I am a programmer right now. I do have a top question of what I want to do next, and I want to stop poker. I've taken too many losses in poker. Not financially, but in terms of time, definitely. So I kind of want to try out trading next. And by trading, I do mean like stock trading. So I'm going to take this lesson from machine learning to heart and really avoid any kind of complexity when I do the stock trading. I'm probably going to be using tabular reinforcement learning, and I'm going to be using that to figure out various patterns. Like I'm still going to be writing like custom trading bots, and I'm going to be testing out various patterns. But as for what we are going to use to figure it out, oh, whoops, sorry, I didn't mean to open this. But this is just my trading journal. I've been keeping it since the start of the year. I haven't been doing much trading. It's just what I've found interesting. It's public, by the way. Whoops. I didn't mean to open this. I meant to open it on remote. Yeah, I've been keeping it since the middle of the year. And it's public in my GitHub profile. I started it while I was working at Dataset. So, if you're curious what exactly I'll be doing day to day, I mean, if you're curious what I've been doing up to now, I put in some good resources that I found interesting there. If you yourselves are interested in trading. So why trading? Pretty much because at this point I made around 100K from the Tao City job. I'll lose 10% of that to taxes when I close my company. But I think I'll have still around 100K at the end because of what I have saved up from my salary and the previous job. So I do have a trading stake, even though it's not a big one. And if I go into poker, Here's what was the problem in poker. I read that the size of the poker economy is is only 6 billion, and that is much less than the financial markets. The financial markets are like trillions of dollars. I don't even know how to even classify it. Let's. What is the size of the financial market economy? Oh, wow, it's actually a lot bigger than I thought it would be. Sorry, there was a stink bug on my table, so had to get rid of it. So yeah, okay, this 118 trillion actually includes bonds and probably currencies and whatever, financial services industry, capital markets, stocks plus debt. Oh, okay, that's still over 100 million. Global fixed income outstanding on the other tens of millions of USD. But if we only consider the because stocks are what we want to trade. Um, the 2% global market cap. Okay, what about the global trading volumes per day for equities? 14, 50 billion shares. Shares. For dollar volume, it's 516 billion. And if we multiply the 560 billion by what 250 trading days, how much would that be? Like what 15 trillion. So yeah, I mean, obviously the financial markets are going to be much bigger than the poker economy. There's no doubt about that. The only question was exactly how much that would be. I have some ideas. We could for poker. For poker, we could make some better cost functions than the ones that Jonathan Lin did, and we have just a tool to do it to make it a lot more a lot easier. I don't know why I got downvoted for the let's see, for the perfect hashing in Spiral video. I'm very sensitive to that. I get you know one upvote per video at most. So I'm very sensitive when I get downvoted. That means the world to me. I wonder what I did wrong. Let's see. Where's that pickler? Yeah, this integer pickler. This is some very good work, and it will probably end up being the highlight of the Couple Dictionary series. And I'm definitely going to be using it for stock trading, and it would make it very much easier to prototype various different cost functions for poker, because you can in fact just create a, let's see, where is the test for it? It's probably, is it maybe this one? Yeah, the integer pickler. You can make a very complex data type, like made of various union types and records and tuples. and it will serialize them to a single integer. We could use this to as a categorical ID for in a tabular reinforcement learning algorithm, and we can do perfect hashing with this. So I could probably take some stock market data, like you know some stock price movement data, and then make an ID for like how many up bars in a row there were recently, something like that. What the past price action is, and then we could make what the volume pattern was, and we could make complex combinations of that. I mean, we could use this to generate categories and do clustering for pretty much any kind of tabular reinforcement learning agent. It's really a pity that I won't be using this for poker in the near term. Maybe I'll get back to poker later. Right now, I just want to leave it alone for a while to get over this loss in machine learning. It's right now I'm basically filled with disappointment. I want to kind of try testing out various patterns in the stock market. I hope you can understand. And it's actually very much possible to beat online poker. Like this guy here has a pretty good and interesting channel. And he basically, in this video, he's basically covering, various poker botters and how they're making millions and tens of millions, how they're taking that from the poker economy. And he's saying so that's kind of like so we could take the tabular reinforcement learning approach, do some mass data analysis. That's basically what the poker players are calling big data science. We could look for patterns. We could start with something like a game theory optimal agent. Then we could look at these large data sets. In one of the videos, I think I've put it in my training journal. Where was it? Okay, iceberg. Let's see. 20 million hands in this database. Let's see. Where was this? Snap NDA databases. Hand Chris. Okay, I forgot exactly which video this was. Yeah, it's probably this one. And it was probably something. He did showcase some databases. Let's see. Was it this one? Probably not. Let's see. What groups? Okay, it's probably not this video. Sorry about that. Maybe some other video. But you get the point. He did mention there's a database of 200 million hands on how various and how various for various players, and we could use this as a basis to train an exploitative bot based on the statistics of how people play there. The way to actually do it in a robust manner isn't nearly as straightforward. Like since it is a static data set, one possible thing we could do is actually use neural networks for that, and then take some kind of large language model architecture, and then train it using imitation learning, because it's not because it's just training to. Okay, maybe not imitation learning, but some kind of how large language models are trained to predict the next token. We could kind of learn a model of the environment based on such a large data set. Then maybe use it as something like a basis for such a poker bot. Another approach that we could do, and I'm going to do something similar for stock trading, and that would be to actually create something like a poker bot manually based on those statistics. Like, if we have a bunch of players which play well on pre-flop and flop, but kind of crumble on the river and maybe call too much or fall too much on the river. We could take advantage of that by building a bot which acts as a, like the average player, and maybe you could do that also using tabular reinforcement learning, but instead of just doing regular counterfactual regret iterations, we kind of splice some of the data from the data set into the model. That could work. One other option would be maybe to use evolutionary algorithms, or maybe even write them out by hand, and write the bot out by hand, so it resembles the data set. And then we train against such a static bot. We could train an agent using counterfactual regret. We could kind of mix game theory optimal play with exploitative play against such a bot to get something in between that we don't want a bot that calls down on the river every time in order to take advantage of other bots that are buffing too much, or we don't want a bot that kind of bluffs pretty much every time on the river. But there are kind of options that we could take if we have a large data set. It would be an interesting task, but it boils down to creating trading bots that are specific to a particular situation. And if we have to create bots that exploit various patterns, I think my time would be better suited to do it in trading, because in trading I already have 100k. So my goal is how to get to 200k, 400k, million k. If I had a good poker bot, I could maybe make millions per year, but we probably couldn't make 10 million or 100 million. I very much doubt that we could ever get anywhere close to 100 million per year in poker botting profits. Let's say $1 million per year is kind of a realistic goal for a poker botter. In trading, we could do much better than that. I think if we could get really good in our quantitative approach. What I am afraid of in the next few years, it's kind of there's kind of like stocks are very at a valuation extremes on one end with the latest AI boom, and on the other end, they're kind of the economy is weakening fundamentally, and tariffs are a part of that. There have also been some failures in the subprime mortgage market, and that kind of resembles what happened in 2008. So we might have a financial crisis, and a financial crisis means a lot of volatility, which would be very good for day trading. If there is an actual market crash, it would also be a great longer-term trading opportunity. And if I kind of putting all my effort into poker botting, and if everything goes ideally, and I kind of turn this 100k into like a million, I probably miss that big boom. In 2009, after the big crash. Okay, let's go to trading view. This was, after the market bottomed, it was an amazing rally and an amazing market opportunity. It was as good as anything you'd ever get as a trader. So I want to do my research to prepare for such an environment again. I want to prepare for a bear market. There will be another bull market decade. Who knows? There will be busts and panics. Right now, the market has been rallying for many, many weeks, and I don't see any edge in, for example, in buying here. That's why I'm pretty much out of the market right now. And the for a trader, the best time to start buying if is after a big panic, like in 2000, in okay, this one in 19, but in late 18 actually. But I wasn't really paying attention to the market back then. I was actually buying after the Trump panic, but I didn't make any money because I kind of put all my money into European defense tax, and you know so they kind of did well after the panic. There was a bit, but as you can see, they were kind of they topped out like 2 months into the rally, and they did nothing since. So that was kind of a bad thing for me. It's kind of disappointing. I wanted to do more with poker, but I just wasn't really prepared to, you know, my goal for it was to find some good neural network machine learning method to improve upon the stand of the art, and then kind of win at it like that. I just didn't expect that there would be literally not a single good algorithm in this particular quadrant. I've been trying to hype myself up for it, but poker really isn't an important part of my life. What is important to me is programming and trading. Because I tried the trading unsuccessfully for 6 years before I became a programmer, and back then I didn't really know how to program, and now I do. And I know machine learning, I know RL, I know a lot of things that could help me actually be successful at trading. It was my passion, and I want to give it a proper try again to see if there is anything useful in my skill set that could give me an edge in trading. I want to build up my trading edge. I think the trading won't be as profitable as poker botting would. In poker botting, if you have a good bot, you can just increase the volume and go and make 50% a month, 100% a month very easily. Like in that video that I showed you, like if you look at the win rate here, it's five big blinds per 100 hands. That is such an extreme edge. Whoever is making these poker bots is doing a really good job. I calculated that even something like a three big blind edge, that's 100% a month for for if your how do I put it, stake or account size is 30 buy-ins of, and by a single buy-in I mean 100 big blinds. With trading, the edges will probably be less. Who knows? If I can find really short-term trading systems that do scalping, who knows? Maybe making very large returns per month would also not be out of the question. But in general, I'd expect that for trading, if I have a good trading edge, I probably would need to seek out outside funding and get outside returns that way. But either way, for either activity, the most important thing is to find an edge and then to apply it repeatedly. And the more you can, the higher turnover you can have, the more money you can make, as long as you can keep a positive expectancy in your trades. Who knows? I cannot, I cannot feeling desperate. I cannot just want to, I don't know, prove my worth. Because there's nothing worse than, you have a good idea, you think that it will, revolutionize the field of AI in some small manner, and then it turns out to be a complete dud. I'm basically I've been an unpaid researcher for the last decade. I want to try getting a job on my own terms. The Tao City job that I had was, pretty good initially. Then it turned to absolute trash in the end. Well, what happens is that the company had a large number of, very expensive machines. The founder sold it and then pretty much bet the entire company on Bitcoin. And what has Bitcoin done in the last 2 months? Right now, as far as I'm concerned, Bitcoin is in a downtrend, and this is very, very dangerous price action. And if the founders keep holding it, the company will eventually go under. I think Bitcoin has pretty much been what Bitcoin is new gold. Gold has had, these speculative booms and busts in the past, and over 100 years, it basically just tracks inflation. And the only reason why gold even had a, you know, why it was tracking inflation, because it kind of reached a low point where it was useful for, where it, it was actually, it's an actual physical asset, so it obviously cannot go to zero. It has some industrial value, and that's basically that. Bitcoin, I think, can very well go to zero because it doesn't really have any intrinsic value. You might argue that it has, you might argue that it has because it can be used for financial transactions. But the problem with Bitcoin is that it's actually a very expensive instrument to do financial transactions with, and you have Ethereum, and you have stable coins which take on that role much better. So Bitcoin can very well go to you know zero. It can go from where it came from. When I realized what the founders had done, it very much demoralized me because it turned the company from an AI company into a really shitty hedge fund. And had I given the money to somebody like our CTO, which was Logris, I would have been much happier. Logris is a pretty good investor. I myself have some trading experience, and we could have change the company from like an A company to a hedge fund. I could have done research on trading systems, and we could have gotten away with like making whatever 15% a year, 20% a year. I don't think finding the systems to do that would have been impossible on the asset scale that the company had. But unfortunately, the founders thought that they knew better than us at how to do trading. And who knows? I've been kind of locked out of the company since the last 2 months, and I'm not interested at all in how it is doing. It's a history as far as I'm concerned. The next year or two, if it really turns into a bear market, it's going to be really interesting. Because if you take a look at how Bitcoin has acted, it kind of got created after the financial panic of 2008, and it has never gone through a serious financial crisis. It's going to be very interesting to see, how Bitcoin does, not just during regular market corrections, but with a full blown crash where the market goes down 50%, and the economy grinds to a standstill. And it's kind of very easy for me to talk about that because I'm not going to be investing or trading long term, but I'm going to be basically day trading. And what can we start things off with? Let's see. Let me just pause here because I have to go for lunch, and I'll show you some interesting papers on that. See you soon.